Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first episode with a guest for season six. And we are joined today with, oh my God. Okay, let me start again. I feel like my mind had words, but my mouth was very delayed. Okay, let me start again. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Minimalist Educator Podcast. This is our first episode with a guest for season six, and we're excited to have Nicole back. Welcome back, Nicole.
Thanks for having me.
Um, so we are starting something new in season six. So this will be our second video because our preview episode will have had video as well. So season six, we are sharing videos that, some guests were like, yes, let's do videos. And some are still like, we'll just stick with audio or whatever you decide. But we thought it'd be great to have you on because you've been on a couple of times and you're also a coach with Plansy Education. So it's just nice for people to see your face and for people to know that you're going to be seen more often on the podcast this season. So we're excited for that. And Christine, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm glad that we will be seeing more of Nicole on the podcast, a friend of the podcast for sure.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. So, because we're airing this episode in January, we thought that it would be good to talk about something that sometimes gets overlooked at multiple points in the year, but we really want to focus in on January as a time for resetting expectations, routines, all of those things. And we've been talking to teachers a lot about expectations and routines this year, it seems a lot like, just for a number of different reasons and in a number of different places. So, Nicole, do you want to just kind of kick us off with maybe the importance of using January as a reset time?
Yeah, I think it's such an important topic, and I feel like teachers, when they're coming through their education program, it's not talked about enough. They aren't given enough examples. They aren't shown how to do it. I mean, I think about even myself. I did my student teaching in the spring, and so by January, you walk into a classroom that's already established, right? So you don't see what goes into it, but actually January is such a big, um, like crucial point in the year because they've come back from a break. They've had so much time of not being in your classroom, especially if you have really little ones. It's like they've never been at school before. It's so funny every time. You're like, wait, we've spent 4 months together. Like, you should know these things, but they don't. And that's okay. It's just part of it. Even older kids, even high school kids, you have to take that time to just relay that foundation and kind of like cement it in. It's still there, right? It's just kind of been like pushed back because they've had so much other things they've been doing or focusing on. Um, and so just getting back into the routine and making sure you take the time to really focus on that before you just jump into teaching because then things just get crazy and the ball's rolling and you're chasing after the entire rest of the school year.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you can imagine it's such a different environment for them over the winter break. You know, they might be the only kid in the house or one of just a few, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, yeah, that's right. I'm back with 20, 30 other kids now. I've got to figure out what this is all about. I'm always really struck as well, coming back this time of year, of how much the kids have grown. So when you
Yes.
have your little kids, you're like, oh, you're not such babies anymore. Or if it's in the, upper end of primary school, where I've spent my career, it's like they come back and you're like, oh wow, yeah, okay, you're ready to go off to secondary school now. Like this is getting real. So can you talk a little bit about that change in phase of the year and really growing up and developing?
Yeah, it's always fun, especially at the beginning of the year. I feel like you're putting in so much work, right? To try and, okay, this is what we're doing here, or this is how we do this, or, you're getting them to
feel confident asking questions or taking risks with their learning. And then they come back in January, and no matter what grade, there's this huge leap. And it's not always obvious, right, with every kid. Some kids, it's like emotional leaps that they have. Some kids, it's academic leaps. It just depends, because each kid is so different. But um, it's really fun to see. But there is some sort of like, I wonder if maybe it's just the time away gives their brain time to just like process and really,
Mm,
digest everything that they've been doing and learning for the past few months. And then they're able to like internalize it and then like, okay, now we're ready for more. Um, yeah, it's really interesting. But that also affects how they, you know, are within your classroom community because some have it changed emotionally, which sometimes is great, and because you needed them to kind of make that little, like leap up. Some of them you're like, wow, you're done with second grade. Like you're ready to move on to third grade. Like you are, okay, we have got a couple more months. Like, let me see what else I can get in you before you jump off to the next one. But yeah, it's a fun stage, but it also is super important and can be a little tricky if you're not being proactive
mhm.
in this time of year. I think a lot of people think we've been with them, they are, progressing academically. Of course, they're progressing emotionally and mentally, but then making sure that you're really focusing on bringing you back together as a community, right? Taking that time to reestablish those relationships because they're still there, but like you talked about, like they might have been the only child at home. So, those rules don't apply, and that's okay. School's different from home, but some kids might have had 4 weeks off, some might have only had 2 weeks off. Like there's a big, big gap. So it's really just, it's also nice to take the time to do that with your students too, I think, because it kind of gets you guys all on the same page and like remind them and remind yourself like what you're there to do as a whole, not just individually.
Yeah. Yeah, that is for certain. It'll be interesting to go back into classrooms in this month, January, to see the growth and change and to hear what teachers are saying about what they notice in their students. So, like you said, the break is a good time where maybe those things are kind of cementing in, and a couple weeks off is a good time to do that, which might be different from summer, right? The 2 months might be too long, but
Right.
anyway. Um, but the couple of weeks for them to just have those routines and expectations sitting in the back of their minds. And then teachers are going to notice a difference when they come back. And so the teachers that you have been working with this
Mm.
year, and we both are working with lots of new teachers, what do you anticipate, just kind of thinking about your group of teachers? And I know everyone's different, but do you think that some of your teachers are going to be like, wow, they were really learning? Like they know what to do now. Like, go me. Yay.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think that's a big revelation that especially newer teachers have, coming back second semester of like, oh, I was doing things well, or oh, this was working, or oh, they did hear me, on that. Um, I think that break is also so good for teachers because especially in your first couple years, like you are just exhausted by that point and you are spinning your wheels trying to figure out, okay, this isn't working, but I don't know how to change it and we only have 3 weeks left, so is it even work, don't change it. Just ride it out. You can change it after the break. That's my advice. Like just stick with what you know for now. Change it later. Um, but yeah, I think like you're saying, Tammy, just that I feel like the teachers I've been working with are actually quite reflective of their own practice and they're quite able to see what their students are actually capable of and who they are as little people rather than just going through the motions and just assuming they know, like they actually know them, which is really amazing, I think, because I don't think all new teachers are like that. Um, So I think it will be really fun to see how they're able to adapt and change, their teaching practices, or even just maybe feel a little more comfortable about, making those little tweaks on the curriculum that are best for their students rather than just following the pacing guide, which I've found a lot of them do, especially first semester, which is totally understandable because it's their first time. But I think they'll be able to see where their students are at because they already can kind of do that last semester. But then with this big, jump and coming back, it's fresh eyes kind of in a sense. So I think that will be really, that's what I'm anticipating is going to be happening, which will be cool to see.
It's great to hear that you've got a group of newish teachers that are so reflective like that. I think that's
Yeah.
arms you so well for this career, doesn't it? Because it's really just this unending process of like, okay,
Yeah.
where are we? Where do we need to go? How are we going to get there? Right. Just when I thought I had it right, where are we? How are we going to get there? So it's really helpful if you from the get-go already got that
Yeah.
reflective practice happening for sure.
And I think it's definitely something you can learn for sure if you don't have it already. And I think it's something that even if you already have it, it's something you get better at over time. I think about myself as a teacher, as a beginning teacher, and I felt like I had a pretty good handle on that. But now, if I were, to be in a classroom with kids, it's my skill. It's a tool, it's a strategy, it's a skill. And it's just like the more you use it, the more you practice it, the more strategies that people, share with you of how to do it, or the more you go observe people and see how they're doing it, it really just helps it get better. So I think it's been really fun to see that they already have a good grasp on that, at least a beginning like foundation of it, which has been cool.
So, if we think about the teachers themselves and working collaboratively with their teams and just within their own practice, what sort of resetting of expectations or resetting in general do you think we need to do as adults with each other and in our own practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really is just your mindset, like resetting your mindset, like you're saying, resetting your expectations. Like coming in with, and this isn't to sound negative, but kind of coming in thinking like they're going to know nothing and I have to reteach everything. And that's not because they know nothing. And that's not because you don't think they're capable of it. It's just setting yourself up for success of saying, I'm going to come in and I'm going to have to reteach how to line up in the classroom. I'm going to have to reteach how we get our pencils. I'm going to have to reteach how we sit at our tables or desks. Like, and again, it's not because they can, it's not a negative way to think, in my opinion. It's just setting yourself up so that they're successful because you know that even by doing these basic things, they'll be able to accomplish them, which helps them feel successful and confident and also helps you feel like, okay, great. We're connecting, we're making this progress together. And I think the same thing for yourself and your team. Like if you work with other teachers or you're collaborating, just coming in saying, like, okay, I know we've done it this way, but let's just go over this is how we're going to plan our math lesson, right? Okay, great. So then you're just coming in, making sure that like everyone's on the same page. You're not expecting too much from any one person, which ultimately then just lets yourself down, right? Because it's not on them. They don't know what you're expecting in your brain, right? That's all your own thing. And I think then also for yourself, just coming in, setting everything up very slowly, coming in like, okay, this is what we're going to practice on this day. And then on the next day, if everything goes well, this is what we're going to practice. And almost like over planning in a sense. Like, I know that we're going to practice walking down the hall 5 days this week. And then when they do it in three, fantastic, right? You feel like, okay, great. We're, I don't need to go overboard with this. I made sure I spent the time to do it. So you're not feeling rushed yourself. You're not trying to squeeze too many things in. You can always, move stuff up. from the next week, you know? But if you just like, okay, we're only going to do this on one day and then this and this and this and this, and then you get behind and then you're already frazzled and it's only the second week of school. And I feel like that's what then sets you up for failure.
Yeah. Well, and this is just making me think a lot of things too, because January is a very long month.
Hmm.
And if you're in winter, it can feel like forever because
Yes,
you might
indoor.
have snow days, yeah, indoor recess. And
Yeah.
so, we come in with good intentions and we're like, okay, I'm just, going to focus on these few things. And I think it's a really good point that you made that we're kind of slowing down the process again. Like, yes, we
Mhm,
have to get back into things, but we have to be realistic and
mhm,
just say, this is what we're going to do in this amount of time. If we can do more, great. But, we don't want to set ourselves up for failure and defeat in January because
yeah.
that's rough. It can be very rough. Something that you were talking about too made me think about, and sorry, I can't remember the exact point, but thinking about, we talked a lot this year, the two of us together, and with the teachers that we've worked with. And
Mhm,
I'd be interested to hear what you've been seeing, Christine. Um, Teachers using reward systems
mhm,
as motivators, right? And so, like, I'm hoping that in January, with this kind of like mental reset, refresh, some teachers will let go of some of the kind of complicated systems that have been set up that are hard to track and don't necessarily work that well. And so I'm hoping that that's what I'm seeing when I go back into classrooms in January. Because there were some things that were just like, you know, we got to rethink what the purpose is here. And if that's not working, is it really just an expectation reset that you need versus your sticker chart, that kind of thing. So yeah, let's have some conversation about that.
yeah, this is always such a big topic for you and I feel. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see how that goes because I have a couple teachers that by the end of the last semester, they're like, this doesn't work and this doesn't work. And I've tried this and this doesn't work. And I've also tried, like, they've tried all the systems, right, in the first semester and they weren't working. So,
Yeah.
of course, I've just continued to support them because I kind of feel like it's a little bit of like a process you have to go through as a beginning
Sure.
teacher. You have to figure out what works for you. And I think some teachers, you can just say, like, these don't work, and they'll just be like, oh, okay, and they won't use them. But
Hmm.
then I think a lot of teachers are just like, but I've seen it work, and it does work, but it doesn't work long term, right? It doesn't have longevity. It doesn't work for every child. It doesn't work for every scenario. It just usually can work in like small bursts.
Hmm.
And by that point, then it like loses its value, right? Because we have talked about this, like over time, one sticker isn't enough of a value. So then you have to raise it to two stickers, and then they want three stickers, and then like, and so it doesn't really work, right? The system you put in place doesn't work because you're having to change it constantly. So, yeah, I'm just really interested to see how it goes because I think coming back and taking that time, which I know for especially beginning teachers, it feels stressful because they do have things to teach, and I get it. I really do. But you also, if you don't have a classroom environment that's conducive to learning, there's no learning that's going to happen anyway. So it doesn't really matter if you're carrying on with the pacing guide or not.
Yeah.
So I think taking that time to reestablish that classroom culture, those expectations, the routines, and I don't know. I just think like I've said this to you before, like I feel like kids like they can be in on it,
Hmm.
right? Like things don't have to be a secret to them.
Right.
They can like be in on the plan. They can be in on knowing what standard they're learning. They can be in on knowing why they're doing such and such things. Like
Yeah.
so I just feel like including them makes it their responsibility and their learning and their classroom and their routines, expectations. So
This is a tricky one for me, I have to say.
Okay.
It's a tricky one. I personally am not a fan, because I feel like it very quickly turns into um, they're doing things just for
Hmm.
Mhm.
the marble or the ding or the whatever, whatever it
Yeah.
is that you've set up. And you can feel when that shifts, and they're like just looking to see if you'll give them and I don't like that vibe in the
Yeah.
classroom. So it's personally not my favorite thing. But at the same time, I have seen in the last few years like a real shift with our kiddos and behavior, and um, how parents respond to behavior things as well. It has been a real shift in the last few years. And I don't think it's just my school, but I hope it's not just my
Right.
school, but I think,
No.
talking to people around the world, it's prevalent in a lot of places.
Hmm.
And I am seeing a lot of very experienced, very knowledgeable, skilled teachers kind of like just at a loss of what to do, just completely like, we've done the class agreements and we've spent time building community, and like I praise them, and I've spent time talking to their families, and still nothing is where I can't reach them, so I I completely understand if people want to give those sorts of things a go. Just
Hmm.
literally, I'll try anything at that sort of point.
Yeah.
So I don't want to make anyone, question what they're trying to do. But it's personally not my favorite thing. But at the same time, I think you do come across some groups of kiddos that it's not just like I need to be clear with the expectations. I think it's bigger and more tricky for
Yeah.
people to tackle than just a clear set of expectations, unfortunately. So yeah, it's a tricky one for me. Yeah.
It is. It is.
Interesting.
I agree. The it's sometimes just student specific too, right? So you don't necessarily have to do a whole class system. You
Mhm.
can just, if there's a couple of kids who, for whatever reason could be like tricky home life, they didn't have like whatever the thing is that's making it hard for them to want to follow the expectations. there's some there's a lot of value in that co-creation process with them, right? Like, okay, we're going to make a little chart for your desk so that we can have like little goals for, just this block of time, which seems to be the hardest for you. And I think that um I've had a couple of teachers in the fall try that with some students, and it has worked really well because then the student is giving some input, like you were talking about, Nicole. It's like that co-creation of the classroom culture. It's that you can let them in on our teaching secret, right? Like this is what you're learning.
Mhm.
But when we give them some of the decision in the process, that can shift things for a lot of kids. But there are those outliers too, where you're like, okay, really nothing is working. And thankfully, that doesn't happen in every classroom. And some teachers will not ever experience that, but many of us have and do. And so we have to be flexible in our thinking with like, okay, did all the resets, did tried this, tried that. Okay, now I really have to get into like the nitty gritty of like digging into like why this isn't working. And that goes to like your reflective practice that you were talking about, Nicole. You were going to add something there?
It's probably another podcast conversation because it's just, it made me think about what Christine was saying and like how this generation of kids is just different and parenting is different now. And so that is clearly taking a toll, not a toll in a negative thing. That's maybe not the word to use, but it's having an effect on teachers and teaching in the classroom and what that all looks like and how the homeschool dynamic is and whatnot. So yeah, probably another time, but just
For
that's
sure.
what popped in my brain.
we might have to figure out some answers before we tackle that
Yeah.
podcast topic.
Right.
Do some research first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. That's I mean, we're already getting to the end of our podcast. And just thinking about the conversation that we had can lead into lots of different conversations to, talk about later and potentially with other guests as well that we're going to have. But just thinking about our original, like resetting expectations, it's January. Let's look at student growth, where they're at. What would be one pare down pointer that you would give our listeners, Nicole?
Hmm. I think, yeah, I think my one thing would just be don't over plan, right? Just keep it simple to start. Like, it doesn't mean you have to do it for weeks on end, but at least the first few days, I would say just keep it really simple and just focus on your relationships and resetting your classroom expectations and resetting your classroom culture, and then go from there. Like, don't over plan too. Like, don't plan like 3 weeks out in advance. Like, just do the first couple days and see how things go.
Yeah.
Like, just try to keep like your workload minimum so that you can enjoy your students too coming back. And you're also then ready for whatever might come because you don't have like an agenda of like everything that needs to be accomplished.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nicole. That was a good conversation, and I'm looking forward to many more.
Yeah, it was fun. It's nice to talk to you, love. I love hearing your takes on things and your opinions. And even though we have a lot of opinions that I think are similar, we also have some that are different. And I think that's really great because it makes for good conversation and it helps you think about things in a different way, which is
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.